well, they'll just say it now. It's like they've reached the memo. The memo's got to them, and then they just. I hear people in LA. I hear people that I know like, "Oh, Elon's just so crazy." It's like something happened to him. He went nuts, and he's a right winger now. Like, how? What are you saying? Like, what examples do you have? Like, they don't have an example. They just have this narrative that reached them, the signal. Like, Elon bad now. Oh, right. Elon bad now. Elon bad now. Elon bad now. And they just start saying it. And you go like, what examples are you using of like his behavior? Well, he let Trump back on the platform. Okay, well, the Taliban's there.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You don't have a problem with the Taliban? The Taliban just bought blue check marks. Do you know that?
Did they really?
Yes.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, they're buying blue check marks so they could be verified. The real terrorist. The fucking Taliban is on, and nobody has a problem with it. The CCP's on Twitter.
Right.
Nobody has a problem with it.
Right.
But they say, like, Trump, they'll let Trump back on. Look, Trump is hilarious. He's a ridiculous person. But don't you think it's better that his tweets get out there and then a bunch of people get to attack him in the tweets? And if those tweets that people attack him with are good, if people are saying good things, then those things get retweeted and liked, and then they rise up to the top of the algorithm. It's all good. Like, you need a voice against someone like that. You can't have that guy howling into the wind on some QAnon forum and all those wackos just so they're only talking to each other with no pushback at all. If you really don't like Trump, you want him on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want that guy to have some pushback. You want people to be talking against what he's saying. You want Twitter, the real Twitter now, which will actually fact check everybody. They fact check Biden. Right? They'll fact check him. So if he says something stupid, they'll go, no, that's not what's true. Here's what's true.
Right. And
that would be good.
And that was actually for a while Twitter's official policy. They had something called the public interest policy, which specifically laid out exactly what you said. Like when a world leader, no matter who it is, says anything, we want it to be out there because we want it to be debated. We want people to see it. We want people to talk about it. We want people to reach conclusions about it. And one of the things that we found in the Twitter files was after January 6th, there was this intense debate within the company where they were basically saying, oh, thank God we're going to repeal the public interest policy, or we're going to poke a hole in it, right? And no longer have that belief system that just because somebody is a world leader, we need to hear what they have to say. So they invented a new policy called glorification of violence, or they called it that. And essentially what they said was you had to look at Trump not in terms of each individual tweet, but in terms of what they called the context surrounding his whole career, all the people who followed him, whether or not they were violent, whether or not they said the things that were offensive. It's like the speech version of stochastic terrorism. I don't know if you ever heard that term. It's stochastic terrorism is this idea that you can incite people to violence by saying things that aren't specifically inciting, but are statistically likely to create somebody who will do something violent, even if it's not individually predictable. And that's what they did with Trump. They basically invented this concept that, yes, he may not have actually incited violence, but the whole totality of his persona is inciting. So we're going to strike him. And so they sort of massively expanded the purview of things they can censor just in that one moment. And it's you can see it in these dialogues, how they came to that decision, which is just fascinating.
It's just such an extraordinary amount of power to give people the ability to censor people on the biggest public forum in the world. It's so extraordinary. And the fact that they can come up with these justifications for why this is a good idea without anyone pushing back, without anyone saying, do you understand where this goes to? This eventually leads to government control of all thought and speech. This is where you're going. You're allowing the government to influence you based on one specific problematic individual, and that could spread out into every one of us, all of us, easily, quickly.
Right. Quickly. I mean, we heard at the World Economic Forum, right? We heard
Brian Stelter was there.
Brian Stelter.
Brian Stelter's now at the World Economic Forum. What can we do about these problems?
He looked very comfortable there, didn't he?
Of course he does. He's with evil lizard people that are trying to control the world. That's his bosses. He knows how to handle that kind of situation. I've been around evil lizard people.
He looked as happy as maybe he's ever been.
Well, he's probably very excited just to be working again in any way, shape, or form.
That's true.
You know, I mean, he's not a guy that really is supposed to be in front of a camera, right? He's supposed to be a journalist, but he's not even good at that. So what he's doing now is holding water for the evil leaders of the world who want to institute hate speech policies nationwide and, you know, centralized digital currency, and they want everybody to eat bugs, and you will own nothing and be happy. This is the fucking people he's working for now. Because he's basically a prostitute. And, you know, they hired him to go over there and do that. And he's like, what can we do? What can we do better?
Yeah.
What can we do different to get everybody to stand in line?
Yeah.
What can we do?
And for a journalist to sit there was that one moment where that woman, Vera Jourova, she's an EU official, and she's talking about hate speech laws, and then she touches the knee of somebody sitting next to her and saying, "You're going to have that in America soon."
Yeah.
And Brian Stelter is sitting there grinning. Yeah. You know, like that's not offensive to him. Like a European basically saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to have this too soon." Like even though it's completely antithetical to everything that we believe in this country. Like, you know.
Well, I think when you're working in a corporate news structure, and you could speak to this better than I could, obviously, but I think when you're working in an environment where you have editors and people in your ear, and you have producers, and you have narratives that the company is pushing, and then you have sponsorships that you're beholden to, it's very difficult to form any sort of problematic or controversial independent thought and then try to express it publicly. You're not going to do it. It's just too scary and sketchy. So when you're trying to keep that job, and here's a guy like Brian Stelter who already lost one of the biggest gigs in all of broadcast news. He was on fucking CNN. And then, you know, here he's standing there and they're saying, you're going to have hate speech laws in America too. He's like, okay, everything's running smooth. Everyone's smiling. Like he's not suitable for that role.
Right.
He doesn't belong there.
Right.
You don't have the stones to carry that conversation in a way that's going to benefit all these people that are listening to it. What you want is someone who's in that position that goes, hold on, what do you think is hate speech? What's hate speech to you, and what's hate speech to me, and who gets to decide?
Yeah, how is that going to be adjudicated? Like, what's your definition? What's your definition of hate? What's your definition of speech? Like,
exactly.
You know, I mean, like there are a lot of questions.
Does context matter? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And how do you decide? And obviously, when you're looking at things over text, context gets very blurry. You don't know if someone's joking around. Like, there's so many pages that I get sent that are satire. I've got a hilarious one. There's a new one. Rick Rubin sent me this one. And he's like, this has got to be satire, right? And it's brilliant.